sounds you're hearing right now are from Vocalise by Heavyocity. Since the moment I heard this library, I was blown away. I mean, it's truly an emotional, a delicate, almost fragile, but at the same time, it's also impactful and powerful, and it's also very expansive, thanks to all of the options that we have here, things like our trigger effects and motion. So in this video, we're going to take an in-depth look at Vocalise from Heavyocity. All right, let's go ahead and take an in-depth look at Vocalise. This is Gravity Pack number 2. Now, you do not need Gravity to run Vocalise. This will run right here in Kontakt. Now, there is a Vocalise 2. Don't confuse that with Gravity Pack number 2. Okay, this is the first Vocalise library. In this video, we're going to take an in-depth look, which means we're going to go through the entire manual here. All right, we have 32 pages to get through. So let's go ahead and start here. First of all, I'll just play a little bit here. I'll just be clicking some buttons. Very cool. Of course, we can look at that sample here. We'll get to all of the options that we have here in this video. And these are some of my favorite up here from Allison. That's just great. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We have a lot to get through. So we'll start up here. In your PDF manual, click this down arrow here in Kontakt and just open up the user manual there. And whenever you install Vocalise, we can see it right here in the Gravity folder, and you can see how large that is, about 2.89 gigs here on Windows. We can step into the folder in case you want to see that as well. All right. So let's go ahead and get started here on our PDF. So we'll just scroll down here, expert, sound design, so on and so forth. All right, about the Gravity Pack 2, you can see that the Vocalise library is divided into 4 main categories. We have our pads, all right, which are playable vocal pads, which are divided into 3 subcategories: our complex, our element menus, and our elements. And then, of course, we have a description of our complex, a combination of 3 elements that are mixed together. Element menus, a different pad sound on each key, and then our elements, a single pad sound playable over the keyboard. And then our performance palettes, a combination of sustained vocal sounds that slowly twist in 2 octaves of phrases. And these sounds can be manipulated by the mod wheel. We have our phrase menus, so instruments with a different vocal phrase on each key, and sustained vowels, so simple sustained vocal sounds. And we can see that right over here. Whenever we click our instrument drop down, we have our pads, our performance palettes, phrase menus, and sustained vowels. And we can go ahead and load up one of these each, so that makes more sense. Right now we have a phrase menu loaded up, which you already heard. Turn this down just a bit. And at any time here in Kontakt, whenever I hover over an item, you can look down in this area in Kontakt and see about that. Okay, same for these notes. We can see the different singers we have for these different phrases. So it's a phrase menu. As you can see, it's a bunch of different phrases, and we have A minor, C minor, D sharp minor, F sharp minor. Let's go to a pads. Let's try a complex. Just get rid of this one here. Let's grab the first one. This is Alone in the Dark. Very cool. And of course, we can adjust our 3 elements as we saw back here. A combination of 3 elements that are mixed together. Go ahead and get out of that. Go to an elements menu, which is a different pad sound on each key. Very cool. And we'll go for, say, elements ambient. We also have elements short there as well. Just grab one, throw it in, just so you can sort of get an idea. All right. And that, of course, is a single pad sound played over our keyboard. Get rid of that. Our performance palettes. Let's just grab, oh, I don't know. Just grab her. Of course, our performance palettes, in case you forgot. Combination of sustained vocal sounds that slowly twist, and then 2 octaves of phrases. You can hear the twisting there. Very cool. Very cool. We already saw our phrases menu. So sustained vowels. Here's a basic ooh. So a great, great choir sound there. Much better than, a lot of other things out there. You can see we have quite a few of these in here. We have stacked ahs, e's, and oohs, moving vowels, so on, and so forth. All right, back to our manual. So these instruments make use of the following interfaces, so which will be referenced throughout the manual. We have the complex pads interface. As you may have noticed, whenever we loaded up a complex pad, we'll just grab another one here, throw it in here. You'll notice this interface here is a little bit different depending on what, on what we load up. Let's just go to our elements short, and I'll just throw one of those down here, and we'll scroll down. You can see that the interface is different on this one here versus this one up here, where we have mix, pitch, punish, twist. Then down here, we have some different options. So in the complex pads interface, the 3 layered sound elements. Of course, we have a mixer for per channel controls for filters, EQ, so on and so forth. And our menus, these are our instruments with a different sound on each key, and then the elements interface. So instruments with a single sound stretch across a large playable key range, all right? So they have some of the same controls and features, but will have, of course, unique elements depending on the interface. Onto your key mapping. So all instruments include a set of what they call key triggers at the top of the keyboard. So F6 to A6. Now that's either on the keyboard here or on your, on your physical MIDI controller. The red keys are our trigger effects. Then A#6 to C7, which is the green keys, is our motion play triggers. You can see sort of that laid out here. All right, and then our menus here. This is, of course, complex pads elements. Here's our menus. So the keys marked in blue contain 1 sound per key. And then C-1 through B0, which is down this end of the keyboard, our magenta keys, is our transposed keys, all right? Which I think we should be able to see that. Let's throw this up here. And right here we can see our transposed keys. So if I play a note, click one of these magenta keys, we can transpose it up higher. All right. So a lot you can do with this instrument. Like I said, it's pretty expansive. So our common interface controls here are in our navigation section. All right. So our controls are spread across 4 to 5 pages, each dealing with different aspects. So of course our main, our EQ filter, our trigger effects, and our motion. And in case you don't know what those are, there's main, our EQ and filter, our trigger effects, and then our motion tabs here at the bottom. All right, so main, of course, contains, sort of your commonly used controls. EQ filter, of course, equalizer and filter options. Trigger effects is for our, aptly enough, our trigger effects. And motion, so that contains the controls for our motion sequencer. And then tabs for accessing these pages at the bottom of the interface. as we already saw there. Again, on the main page, all instruments have a ADSR, or attack, decay, sustain, release volume envelope located to the right of the main page there. So our complex pads, of course, have 3 envelopes. All right, 1 for each channel. Elements have a single, and the menus have an envelope per sound. Okay, right now we have a menu loaded up. So if I go to, we'll go to this C note here. Let me transpose this up. You can see that's C2. I come up here to C3. You see that it changes. Now I can change the envelope for C3. Make the attack longer. It's going to take longer to fade in. Now I go back to C2. Now the envelope didn't change, but that's because we have link on. We'll just take link off there. And we can change this. And when I go to D, and has a different envelope. I go to E2, I can change that however I want. And have a completely different envelope for each of those sounds, okay? That's just what that means. Just in case you're unfamiliar with an envelope. We'll take another look at it here in a minute, but we have the attack, so of course that controls the attack, or our fade in time. Our decay, that controls the time it takes for the volume to fade from the maximum value to the sustain value. Then we have our sustain, which of course controls the level at which the envelope will sustain while the key is held, and then our release time. So that's basically the fade out time, all right, that it takes. All right, and then the 3-channel instruments have 3 tabs above our ADSR control, okay, to select which envelope you are currently editing. All right, we already saw a envelope with a per sample, okay, that have the note readout on there. All right, and then in both cases as the above, you will find the link button, which we already saw the link button there. So clicking on the link button will link all the ADSR envelopes and set them to the currently displayed setting. So when it's active, you are effectively able to use a single envelope for all of the sounds. So just in case you don't know what your attack, decay, sustain, release is, let me get rid of this, because this is actually very important to shaping your sounds. We'll go to these elements short here, and I'll just choose a note here. So you can see how that just comes on, right? Because you can see where our attack is at. Now, if I pull the attack way up, you can see it's going to be much slower now. So now it fades in. So that is your, that's your attack. You can just set that wherever you want. Just some, different sounds from your samples. Pull that decay way down. So now it's just coming on and staying at that sustain level. Then whenever I release, this is our release time. So we have a really short release time. On and off versus a longer release. Now it's just going, I'm not even holding the button, it's still going on. Still going on, still going on. Still going on. It's still recognizing the envelope that we had whenever we played the note originally. So hopefully that explains your attack, decay, sustain, and your release there. If we have an attack real quick with our decay down here, you can see that the sound comes on and drops down to our sustain level, and then it will fade out with our release time. All right. So one more time. You can see it comes on real quick and then drops down. Versus if I pull my decay up more, it'll gradually go down to our sustain level, which we may want way down here. Hear it? Let's go ahead and move on. We have a lot to cover here. Onto our twist and punish effects. So all the instruments have a central area on the main page that is divided into 3 or 4 tabs. The exact tabs differ, as we already mentioned, but all instruments include our punish and twist effect. So punish is the effect. It's a combination of compression and saturation controlled from a single knob. And we just turn that to punish the sound. All right, we can turn the effect on and off, of course. And then the twist effect is an animated tone altering effect that twists the audio. And of course we can turn that on and off. And you can use it as a stationary effect to quickly alter the tone of an instrument, or you can use the animation controls to give the tone movement. And of course we have some controls here. Our twist is a large center knob there. That's the amount of animation that's applied to the tone. Our tone will set the central tone. Our rate controls the rate of the tone animation, and our on-off button, of course. So let's hear some of that punish. We'll have to load up something else here to hear that a little better. All right, let's just choose a note. Great sound. We have a pitch tab here. Onto our punish. We can saturate that. To turn it down, of course. So a very cool effect there. You can really hear that compression and saturation take effect. Don't forget to adjust your levels. Of course, the vocals are much more present because we compress it. Of course, we can turn that off and then turn it on. Then here's our twist. Let's actually turn punish off there. On the twist here. Already have some twist going on. Let's just turn it down. It's actually not turned on, so let's go and turn it on. And turn it up. Adjust your rate. You see these are time signatures here. 1/1, 3/16, 1/4. Adjust our tone there. So now we're getting motion in that. You can hear the tone that's being affected if we pull it way up here. Right. So of course you can, like I said, like the manual says, you can use this to really sort of shape your tones to add, add movement and whatnot. Okay. On to our master effects. So every instrument has 4 master effects, and some very basic ones. We'll just go through these pretty quick because hopefully you'll understand, how these work. We have on-off buttons located beside the effect name. Obviously we have a reverb, and this is going to be a convolution reverb, which is of course an impulse response, and they are capable of producing the most realistic reverb effects or crazy sounds. We have our impulse response menu, a pre-delay, so that's just the amount of signal that's going to go through basically the amount of signal it's going to go through before we get our reverb there. Okay, the size, that's pretty self-explanatory, and of course the mix. We'll go ahead and go through these because these are very basic effects that you should already know. So we have a chorus, rate, depth, phase, and the amount, delay, time, feedback width, amount, so on and so forth. Of course, create echoes and whatnot with this, and distortion. Hopefully you understand what distortion is, and we have basic controls for that: drive, tone, bass, and treble. So let's go and check these out. What do you say? Since this is sort of a demo of the software, let's just try something else. Different preset here. We'll have I'll have an area later on where I sort of go through some of these presets. So over here is our 1, 2, 3, 4 main effects. You can turn them on and off with this button right there. Increase the mix of our reverb. Or we can pull it all the way out. So this, this tone here already has some depth to it, but you can still definitely tell when that reverb is on. Okay, and of course there's our pre-delay, so we could really pre-delay that a lot. And you really hear this on some shorter, shorter sounds. And of course the size, which of course basically like the size of the room. We have our drop down here. We can choose a bunch of different impulse responses, a bunch of different like rooms, so on and so forth. Okay. Go and close this one off. I'll come back here, go to an element short here. So I think you'll be able to hear this better. On one of these, turn the delay off. Take the size way up. All right, turn the reverb off. Go to the chorus. Increase that decay a little, or that attack a little bit. Turn the rate up and pull our amount up. So you can hear the chorus there. The phase. Mount the depth. Turn the rate down a bit. So now it's sort of rotating a bit slower. You can think of it, it's sort of like twist, but it's not, not exactly the same thing. Delay, which hopefully you know what a delay is. Turn the amount up there. Turn up the sustain part. All right, and distortion. Turn this down a bit. Increase the drive. All right, and then you have some basic controls there for your bass and your treble, and of course your drive. Turn them all on, turn one on, whatever you want. You can completely change the sound just by using your included effects. Onto our performance controls. If you have a synth, you should hopefully know what these are. But in case you don't, we have our velocity. So that of course offsets the note velocity values, effectively altering the dynamic range of the playing. So that will soften our MIDI velocities. We have glide and unison to create our detuned multiples of the played note. In glide, we don't have this control in all instruments, but that's the glide time between notes. We'll show this real quick here. Let's go ahead and grab a different sample. We'll keep in this area of the elements short. All right, let's hear this one. Check out glide first. So now notice whenever I change notes. It glides down. It's got to glide up. Glide down. You can of course adjust that here. So again, you can really make some cool sounds with that. Turn unison up. So that's our detuned multiples of our sound there. All right, now for velocity, since I'm not using a keyboard, I'll have to put a note here in Pro Tools. So I'll grab my pencil tool here and we'll just find a good, that'll work. We'll just draw something in here. Open up my velocity layer here. Pull it up to say 110 or so. And when I play back, right? So then if I turn this velocity down, you can see what happens. Nothing. We'll increase it a bit here. Stop playing and I'll play back again. So I didn't change my velocity. You know, I didn't change it. We're still here on 110. If I increase it, it's going to sort of increase that over what I played. Okay, so you can sort of, you can offset it for your keyboard, for how you want to play, for how hard you're playing, so on and so forth. That's how you would use your velocity knob there. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our trigger effects. This is pretty interesting. So the trigger effects are effects that are triggered with MIDI keys F6 to A6. They allow you to temporarily alter or completely mangle a sound quickly and with ease. So in each of the trigger effects, there are 5 trigger effects available. We have distortion and lo-fi, which is sort of like a distortion, but not quite. It's a digital quality reduction. Okay, so we can sort of decimate it here. We have a filter, which gives us a choice of low pass or high pass filters to alter the timbre of the instrument. We have a panner, that's obvious what that is, and a delay echo effect there. And we can come here to our trigger effects right here by clicking that trigger effects right there. Actually, we need to go to, I think we'll just go to a different sample. Maybe a phrases menu. Let's go for D sharp minor. All right, we'll come here to our trigger effects and we can see our trigger effects up here. You can see whenever I click one of these notes that the trigger effect can come on. Look for these buttons right here. Whenever I click this, I'm holding it down, I release, it goes off. Holding it down, I release, it goes off. Okay, so again, because I am just, you know, using my mouse here, I'll have to draw a note in. That one will work. So we'll just, we'll go through this here first and then we'll check that out. Scroll down here. So the following controls have the same function regardless of the effect. We have an on-off switch, which we just looked at. We can use the on-off switch to toggle the effect on or off if we don't want to use our MIDI keys. And then we have sequence, so that toggles the modulation sequences on or off. We have an advanced tab here. Okay. So there's all these controls. All the effects have 2 parameters that you can edit. These alter the sound, of course. So distortion, lo-fi, filter, panner, delay. Okay. As you can see there, you can read that there if you want. Hopefully you know what this does. Our bits, our S rate, the cutoff, and the resonance and the width, whatnot. Okay. The advanced controls here. So every trigger effect has the same advanced control layout. All right, you can see that there. We'll get to it in just a minute. You can use the back button there to navigate between them. And our step sequencers, each of the main parameter controls is linked to a step sequencer. So as you can see, this gets really, really, really deep. So we can draw in, sequence by clicking and dragging. So the master rate for both of the sequences is controlled by the rate knob located between the 2 sequencers. All right, we have a range, so the modulation amount applied from the sequencer to the parameter, okay, the intensity of modulation, for example, the smoothing to smooth the, the steps, the amount between the steps there. So when set all the way to the left, no smoothing will occur. All the way to the right, so no stepping will be heard. 16 to 23 steps that we can select there. And then we have a bunch of options here: ramp up, ramp down, triangle, comb, and a sine. Okay. How many cycles we want there, so on and so forth. We'll go look at this in a minute. So the comb shape is an exception, as a number specifies the length of each comb column rather than the number of columns. And then we have a random button there, randomize, which is pretty cool. We can copy and we can also paste, okay, our sequences there. And our effect envelope, which is going to be basically the same thing, our attack and then decay, and then effect specific controls, the filter and delay, have specific controls that are accessed in their advanced pages. So filter, switch for the filter mode, options for low pass and high pass, and a delay. Okay. So let's check that out. Kind of confusing, right? But we'll just take this step by step here. We can see the advanced buttons underneath all of these here. We can use the arrows to step through them. So here's filter, advanced, go forward, panner, advanced, delay, advanced. Turn that on, turn that off, hit the back button. We can turn that on here, go into advanced. You can see that's on here. Okay. Same thing if we hold down this button. We'll go back for now. And I'll just play back and I'll just hit some of these buttons here. You can see that the sequence is on or off, but we can turn that on or off. Which, by the way, the sequence button toggles the modulation sequences on or off, okay? So we'll head back to that. Let me just hit play here. And just hold down one of these buttons. Now the filter's on. There's our delay. That's the lo-fi. And that's the panner there. Or we can just turn them on if we want. We can just turn these on. I can just press a key. All right. Of course, we can adjust these however we want, but here in the panner, if we go to advanced, so there's our sequence, as you can see, that's running there. You can come in here and draw something different as it affects this here. And then pan right here, as you can see it, this sequencer is affecting our pan there. Turn this 100% to the right there. You can see how that affects. Now we'll turn the sequencer off. You see now everything is on the right. It is staying on the right. If we turn it back on, then this here, our sequence is going to affect our pan. All right. Control click that to center. So that's what the sequence button will do, is how it modulates. It modulates the effect, right? It's the sequencer itself isn't, it's not modulating the sound itself. It's modulating the effects. Hopefully that makes sense, and that's going to be the same for all of these. You go to distortion, turn that on or off, and we can turn that on or off from the advanced page or from right here. It's going to be the same thing. Okay. So if we go to, we have our sequence on for the distortion. You can see how that bright is affected. Maybe we want to take that way down like that. And our drive is on and off, on and off. Again, we have our tools here. We can ramp it. Triangle. How many steps? Now this is comb, so this is different. And then our sine. Go to ×4 there. All right, let's just turn that off. Turn it back on. If you want to come with the bright way up here. All right, and we have either 16 steps or 32 steps for both of these. course, you can draw it in there. You have the effective range there. Turn it way down, way down. Versus way up. Put this back on 32, 32. All right, and of course our smoothing, just so we don't really hear the, steps, so to speak. You could probably really hear this on the brightness here. So if we have it really low, and then we'll just have it come, we'll pull this all the way up, and then drop it down. We'll pull our smoothness all the way down. We'll pull it up. Or so that just smooths, smooths those, assists the smoothing amount between, between the steps there. And that will probably be even more apparent if you did, a lot of little tiny things like that. It's much harder there. Much more abrupt. Much smoother. All right, I think that explains pretty much everything in here. Just so remember we can activate all of these things by just holding down a key, okay, on your keyboard here, or of course programming that key in your DAW. All right, and of course your sequencer, whether or not that's running or not, you can set that up in here however you want. You have all your tools. If you want some predetermined shapes, we can save, copy. If we want to copy it, we can paste the same thing into another one, or we can randomize. So if you get a good random one, you can just copy that and then paste it somewhere else. All right, and we can go to another one and paste that in there too. Moving on, now I think that explains all of our trigger effects. Now onto another deep subject, the motion. All right, so all instruments include the new motion page, which contains a modulation sequencer that changes the volume, pan, and pitch of the sound over time. So the motion page comes in two flavors. We have a single channel. So that's found in most instruments that feature a single modulation channel for the instrument. And then we have multi-channel. So this version is found in the complex pads and the riser breakouts. It features a full set of volume, pan, and pitch modulation sequences for each channel. Okay. On to our triggering our motion playback. This is going to be similar to our trigger effects. Okay, this is going to be MIDI keys A#6 to C7, or we can click on the play button to the left of the sequence, and we can also, by clicking on the global play button located to the bottom right of all pages. So let's head over to motion there. You can see this global play button down here. You can see how that starts to play through. And then right down here are green buttons there. I hold that down. Or actually, I don't have to hold it down because we have a latch on there. You can click it and it starts to play through there. I just click it once. There it goes. You can see the playhead right there. The play button, we can click that as well. On or off, we can do it here, so on and so forth. So if I hold down the one, it will continue to play through our motion. If I release it, it goes off and it will stop once it stops there. Now latch means I can just click one and it will just stay latched. Okay, so now it's latched, and if I play, it's just gonna stay latched. Now if it's not latched, make sure that's off. Then I'd have to hold it down. So we already have a note over here. What do you say we go to a different sample here? We'll grab a sustained vowel. Let's go for something like this here. Okay, we'll head over to our motion page here. Now you can see this one here is it's more complex. All right. Got our motion tab, and there we go. So now we can see both of these together. So I'm mute right now. I'm gonna have to change this to, I'll just put it on Omni right now. All right, so we'll just, that one's muted. We'll just hear this one here. All right. So I have a note right here already. Just turn that up a bit. And we can hold down one of these buttons over here. Hold it down, so I'll play back. Then I'll hold down the button. Release it. Hold it down again. Release it. Hold it down. Release it. Or we could just play back and I could hit something. All right. Or we could hit play down here as well. Even if we're, say, on main, we could do that from here. All right. Head back to the motion. And we have all of these buttons up here, which we'll get to in a minute, but that's, you know, how we can play back. So here we have our key lock. So when active, the 3 trigger keys, so A6 to C7, are linked together and act as one. So this only affects the multi-channel version of the motion sequencer. So we'll check that out before we before we forget what that means. That's actually very very important here. So this one here, you can see whenever I click one of these keys here, right now they're all playing back because we have key lock on. Take key lock off, we turn all of these off. Again, this is sort of similar to what we just saw, that we can turn these on with this playhead here, or with this playhead down here, or by triggering it on the fly. You see, turn it on, turn it off, click it again, it goes off, click it again, it goes off. But again, we have latch on. So let's turn latch off. Now, if I hold down a button, the second one, only channel 2, is having that motion applied to it because, again, we have 3 channels in this one here. All right, back to motion there. Now, if I turn all of these on and play. All right, let me turn those off. Now I'll play back, and now since we have key lock off, we have latch off, I'll have to hold down one of these buttons, or of course, draw the corresponding MIDI note into our DAW whenever we want this to come on, and then it will go off as soon as that note is released. That's just channel 2. That's channel 1. Channel 3. Now if I put key lock on, whenever I hit one of these, they all 3 come on. Okay? Very cool. So we have volume, pan, pitch. Okay, and a lot of the same things that we had previously in choosing, you know, different shapes that we can just choose. We can of course draw in here. We have our same range control that we had previously and our same smoothing control. All right, we can nudge this over a few steps. I have a magnifying glass here to see it in one panel. Okay, so this is just channel 1, just in one panel there. Click the X there to get back to it. So let's go ahead and we'll just actually read what these do. I think I already showed a lot of it there, but latch. So when latch is active, the MIDI triggering of the motion sequencer only responds to notes pressed. Okay, the first press starts the sequence. The second press stops it. That's when latch is on. So, you know, we already saw that. If latch was on, and key lock is on right now too, by the way. If key lock is not on, then only the channel I trigger will get turned on. All right, but if latch is not on, I have to hold down the button, and whenever I release it, it goes off. So we'll turn key lock back on just so they all 3 come on at the same time. So I'm pressing down, they all come on. I release, they all go off. With latch, I press down, they just stay on. If I want them to go off, just press again, and they all go off again because key lock is on. We could also come in here and turn them off if we want to do that as well. All right. Then we have retrigger. Retrigger is pretty self-explanatory. Hopefully you know what retrigger is. Let me come back to this one. So if we go ahead and we'll just put latch on here. I'll just hit this button so it starts playing through. I'm going to be hitting different notes. Every time I hit a different note, it re-triggers that that motion there. As you can see, how it's playing through. Now I'll just hit a button. It'll re-trigger, 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 re-trigger. Now if I take re-trigger off, now this is just going to keep playing through this sequence no matter what I hit. So it's going to continue on with this sequence. It's not going to re-trigger, it's just going to keep going. You know, through all of those different sequences. Let me turn chain off there. So we just stay, follow off there too. So it just stays on this one here. See, it's not re-triggering. Put re-trigger back on. Just starts that sequence all over. All right, so that's your key lock, your latch, and your re-trigger. It's going to work the same up here as well. All right. You know, sometimes you may want to re-trigger whenever you hit a new note. So the sequence starts over. But sometimes you may want it to continue on with the sequence, so you take re-trigger off. So it doesn't start over. Of course, we can come in here and draw whatever we want. We have our volume, our pan, and our pitch that we can mess with here. All right. So re-trigger, we already saw that. So when active, the sequence will restart from the beginning when a non-legato note is played. So legato overlapping notes will not restart the sequence, whereas the sequence will restart from the beginning when a non-legato note is played. Okay, that's when re-trigger is active. But the legato overlapping notes will not restart the sequence. Okay. So just keep that in mind. On to patterns and pattern chains. Each motion sequence can contain up to 8 different patterns, which can be chained together in any order in the pattern chain. So a pattern can be selected to view and edit by clicking and dragging on the numeric value to the bottom left of the motion page, which is beside the edit menu, which will be over here. Edit menu, you can see this button right here. You can just click and drag up and down. You can see we're going through the different ones, 1 through 8. We can set those up here as well. We can click and drag. Which pattern do we want where? You know, if I want to put pattern 2, which nothing is on it right now, it's not on the pitch. Go to pitch, have it come up here, down here, and then all this is already set. And we want 2 to be right here. And just click and drag up. Okay, so now pattern 2 is right there. You can edit that as such there. All right. The pattern chain can be toggled on or off by clicking the chain button. So when chain is active, the played pattern will cycle through the patterns defined in the chain. When chain is inactive, the played pattern will be whichever pattern is currently selected for viewing or editing. Okay, so if chain is off and we have 1 selected, right? Play there. Let me change this to something else. All right, so chain is off. Now if I turn chain on, it's going to go through these here. So you can see it's going as 3, 4. It's on the 5. You can see that. We can control that here. So maybe we just want 1 and 2. There's 2, back to 1. If we want to look at 2, we can see 2 right there. Ramp it like that. All right, turn re-trigger on. And of course, remember, we have these buttons over here that we can turn that on and off with. Okay. And of course, a latch and key lock have to do with that as well. Specifically the key lock for up here. Okay, for our three channel sequencers and our motion tab there. So moving on, we have the follow button. So the follow button links the displayed pattern to the chain. So if the chain is active and the sequence is running, the displayed pattern will automatically update as a new pattern is reached in the chain. You can of course check that out. Turn follow off. Let me put this on, say 3 there. We'll just pull this over. If I play, so we're on 2, we're on 3, we're on 4, but our pattern here, what we're seeing isn't changing. So we'll turn follow on, and now this display updates every time it hits that new pattern. So there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, so on and so forth. Of course, if retrigger was off, it's just going to keep playing through no matter if I play a new note or not. Turn retrigger back on, we're going to start over. So back to 1 there. Another note, back to 1. All right, now editing the pattern chain. So the pattern chain is located just above the main navigation tab. It's comprised of 8 boxes and a slider. So the slider above the boxes defines the length of the pattern chain. It can be set to any value from 1 to 8. So the boxes are where you can define the order of the patterns. Clicking and dragging on each box we'll select the pattern for that slot in the chain, which I think I already showed that already. You can just click and drag. So which pattern are we going to have in this box here? It doesn't have to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It can be 1, 5, 1, 7, 3. We can do 5 again, so on and so forth. And you can make this as long as you want it. All right, so like I said, a lot of stuff you can do in this virtual instrument. Tons of stuff you can do. Moving on, so now we have our master controls here. So to the right of the pattern chain are the master controls. So some basic things are attack, our decay, rate, and the amount of steps. So you should already know what all of that does because we've already sort of gone through what an attack, a decay does. We already know what steps do. We already know what rate does. So of course that's the fade in time. That's the fade out. Of course that's of the modulation, right? When the motion playback is stopped. Of course the number of steps and then the rate of it. So then we have below the chain button is the edit menu, which contains the following functions. We have reset pattern, randomize pattern, copy pattern, paste pattern, reset the chain, and we can also randomize the chain there. And we'll take a look at all of that in just a minute. On to editing the sequences. Of course, we can just go in there and draw a sequence. We have the volume, the pan, and the pitch, as we already saw. So the sequences for each of the parameters that can be displayed by clicking on the respective tab below the main sequence. All right. We can also quickly edit by using the controls, which I believe I already showed those. And we have copy, paste, randomize. We have reset to 0, ramp up, ramp down, triangle, so on and so forth. And of course that nudge pattern there. So we'll check all that stuff out, which I think we already saw. So we have our edit right here. We can reset the pattern. We can randomize the pattern there. We have pan and pitch. We can go there and randomize that too. And we can copy that and go to a different pattern. I can paste that in there. So let's put something in the pan, or maybe use one of our tools there, say triangle. And we'll copy that. And we'll go to 5. And we're on the pan, so we can paste that in there. That makes sense, right? And we can come down here, we can copy patterns and paste patterns. And of course we have our step. We can step those over and whatnot. Randomize. We have randomize patterns there. Randomize pattern there. Copy it here. Maybe paste it there. And of course this, this edit menu is for all of the patterns, where this is the pattern copy and randomize and whatnot, which, of course is different. So, for example, we'll just go to 1 here. And we'll just use our tool to put all this just like that. Then we'll go to pattern 2 and we'll just do a 4-time ramp up there, and then a 4-time ramp up there, and then 4-time ramp up there. Then we'll come here and we'll copy the pattern. So that should copy everything here. Okay. We'll come back to 1. We're to edit. No, paste that pattern. So we should have all of that in here now. Okay. We can come here and randomize the pattern. Okay. And of course you can reset your chain. You can even randomize your chain. You can see the numbers there as they're being randomized. Just randomize all that. And of course the attack and decay for your chain there, which as we saw, of course, sets the fade in time for the motion modulation, right? And the fade out time. So I think we've about covered that much of it. We have steps here you can drag up and down to get more or less of your steps there. And then of course the rate. So put this down just to 6 here. And then the rate. Way up. And you know, as I mentioned, we have the range and the smoothing there as well. So again, man, so many options that we have here with this quite, you know, amazing instrument. And it sounds amazing, and then you have you know, it sounds amazing on its own, just loading something up, but then you get in here and you really start to mess around. It just sounds fantastic. So we'll come up here to our 3-channel version there, just so I can show you, you know, all of this is the same. You know, we can ramps, move by a step, the range, the smooth. We can solo or mute each of our different lanes there, just so you you know, you can figure out what's going on. Maybe mute this one. All right, and this is like I said, it's essentially the same as the single one below. We still have the options here, so we can copy 4 here, copy that pattern there, come back to 1, paste it in there. All right, and same stuff for our copy pattern here, random on all of these. Then we have this link button there. Oh, we have the attack, the decay, and the steps and the rate, of course, for this too. And then we have this link button, which I should probably go to the manual for that, just so everyone can see it. Since in these in-depth videos, I'd like to actually go through the manual, so this video will actually suffice as reading the manual as well. Plus, you know, watching this video, you can actually see what everything does, so you don't just have to read it and then wonder. All right, so in the 3-channel version of our motion page, you will also notice a chain link below the sequences, okay, beside the random button there. So this is a channel link button. Whenever you activate it, all channels will save to the channel in which you activated the link button. So that essentially means we are turning our 3 different sequences, you know, into one. Okay, so you can see the individual settings for other channels will be ignored. So deactivating the link button will, of course, return all channels to using their own settings. You can see that if you want. So whatever one we choose a link on, it will link for everything else. Okay, whichever one. We can only have one active, so it will just ignore, you know, whatever settings we have for these other ones. Okay, which we don't have any on that one there. So as you can see, that's, you know, completely different. 3-channel motion control. So there's 3-channel variation, has a few extra controls, not just the link buttons. I think we already looked at it. We have the magnifying glass, so that way it expands the channel over the other 2, just so we can see it better. Then of course we have our solo button, this solo that channel. So this is a full audio solo linked to the mixer on the main page. Same for our mute there. So we solo that, go to the main page. We can see solo is on here. Okay. Our keyboard even changes colors for us. All right. Almost done with this section, I promise. So here's presets. The entire state of our motion page can be saved and loaded as presets there. That's pretty self-explanatory. We have save, load, and browse there. So with the file browser, you can quickly and easily navigate through the presets folder to find a motion preset. Just double click it to load it. So after loading a preset in this manner, you can use the arrows beside the browse button to cycle through the presets, okay, from the same folder as the one you just loaded. Then we have motion lock, which we'll get to in just a second, but we need to go back to motion just so you can see that we have this browse up here. We can go through different things. So let's just choose one here, load it up. Make sure we either play, one of our many options we have to play here. Play the sequence, the motion sequence. Use this arrow here to cycle through. Back to browse. Go to rhythmic and swell. Of course, we can come in here and edit them individually if we want. Then we can link that if we want. All right, so that's a good explanation of link there. Okay, then we can stop the playback. Let's move on. Let's get done with this section. So we have the motion lock. All right, the motion lock button can be used to disconnect the motion presets from the main Kontakt snapshots. When motion lock is active, the motion settings will remain fixed. When a snapshot is loaded, when motion lock is deactivated, the motion settings will be overwritten with whatever settings were stored with the loaded snapshot. So basically, if you like what you have here, you can do a motion lock. So whenever you load a new snapshot or something, it shouldn't change. So we'll go to a different there. So now we have a different snapshot. Go to a different one here. Let's go, here we go. All right, guess what? I think we're actually done with this motion tab. I think we spent most of our time in that tab, but there's a lot of stuff in there, and even if you watch this video, it'd be good to give this, a quick read through, just sort of refresh yourself. A lot of this stuff is going to be the same for a lot of the Gravity pack. So once you learn it once, you should have, have the basics down. All right, so that is our motion section. Moving on, here we have EQs and filters. We're on page 23, only a few more to go. Sample channel EQ. So we all know what an EQ is, right? An effect designed to control the levels of different parts of a signal's spectrum. I'm not going to tell you how to use an EQ. You should know how to use an EQ. You can just adjust, lows, highs, mids, whatnot. All right. So the exact routing of EQ differs for each of our different types. Our complex pads, our menus, our elements that we saw at the very beginning of the video. So our complex pads, each channel has its own EQ. Menus, each sample or key has its own EQ, which that can actually get pretty interesting. And then the element is a single EQ for the sound. All right, all three bands of the channel sample EQ are identical, each with the same three controls: level, okay, the gain, of course, of the band, the frequency control, the central frequency that we're manipulating, and of course the Q control, the quality Q of the band, which is, just the, that's the bandwidth. How wide is that band? If you don't know what that means, let me bring up another plugin just so we're 100% thorough here. We'll just grab an Avid EQ, just in case you don't know what the bandwidth is. So let's just grab something here. We'll throw the gain up. Now this is the bandwidth right here, the width of the band. So right here's our Q. We can make that wider or more narrow. All right, so that's your Q, your bandwidth. Okay, so obviously a wider Q will affect more, more frequencies versus a narrow Q. You can notch things out. All right, so hopefully that explains what the Q setting is, just in case you're not familiar. So what do you say we, actually, I'm going to stick with this one here for now. We'll load some different samples in a minute. Let's go here to the EQ filter, come down here to the EQ filter. Okay, so these are a little different. Channel 1, channel 2, channel 3. Scroll down here, you can see master EQ filter, and there's a equalizer there. Up here, EQ filter, we can just click to go turn them on, turn them off. Okay. So it is, it's a little different, but they do basically, the same thing. Master EQ here, here's the EQ here, here's the filter here. All right. Now in this, let me mute this one actually. Come down here and take that off mute. Make sure this is selected. You can see that this is a master EQ. Turn that on, turn this on, and we'll turn this on. You can see when I go to a different note, now the master EQ is still on. So we're on B2. Okay. You can slide this up, by the way. Just changing the note that this is applied to. But if I click a different note, you see on this note here, turn that off. The motion. Okay. Turn that off. Now when I click different buttons, different notes, we have an EQ. In this case, we have an EQ because this is the elements menu. We can have different EQ and filter settings for each note. So this can get kind of crazy. We can have the overall level of those bands. We can choose, here we're choosing, let me pull these down, the center range there, and then the width, you can see there. Okay. And then the frequency, and then the level there. And that's just for our E3 note. If I come up here on F4, we can have a completely different EQ setting. Of course, I hit, there we go. Turn that way down. Make it really wide. All right, turn the filter on just for F4. Okay. And this is going to be similar. All of these are going to be similar. All of your EQs and whatnot will be similar. Okay, so if we go, let me change our snapshot. Now we have per channel. We can mute and solo that, turn them on or off. So if I solo it, we come back to main, by the way, that's a master solo there too. Okay, just like in our motion section, that's soloed too here in our motion section. All right. So we can set up different EQs and filters for each of these different bands. So turn the EQ on, it's going to react the same way. You know, we're not changing per note here. Now it's per channel, whereas here it's, you know, per note. And go back to here. So in our elements, we have just a single EQ for the sound, which I should have enough RAM available to go to elements. We'll throw an element in here and take a look at that, just so you're familiar with everything there. All right, put this on solo. Turn it down a bit. You can see how it's not changing the note, whereas if we were up here, then we have it per note. Just watch how the equalizer, I'll just turn them on here. The EQ will change depending on what note I hit. I'll go to D. I haven't set anything on D. If I want to come through here and just start setting things up, I can do that without actually having to press the notes. Okay. Okay, and we'll come back up here, I guess. So we'll turn the filter on for channel 1, EQ's on for channel 3, and the filter for channel 3, and just the EQ for channel 2. Lots of settings in our filter here. I don't think we'll go through all of them. We have a bunch of different filter LFOs, sine waves. Here's random, ramp minus, ramp plus, square. We can have it on sync, choose our rate. This is our envelope, the LFO, the velocity, the key, the resonance, the cutoff. As you can see that you get some pretty cool effects. We turn this key down a bit. Go to this filter here. It's on low pass. Change that to a format. So you can really, you can tweak in here for a long, long time. All right, but let's go through the rest of this. So our filters is also used to alter the timbre of a sound, but in more extreme ways than an equalizer. I mean, an equalizer is indeed a filter, but a filter, as it's usually talked about, is a little different. Okay, so modulation options are offered to increase the sonic possibilities, as you already heard there. And once again, as you already saw, each of our different interface types, complex pads, menus, elements, they have different ways this is set up, which we've already seen here. Okay, so we have 3 channels here. Here we have a different filter per note. Take this off of mute and put it on solo. All right, you can see how that changes, and of course down here, then we just have the filter and the EQ for the sound. Okay. Now I'll go through this pretty quickly. I'm not going to explain how this filter works, but so you can select one of 5 filter modes by clicking and dragging on the filter type, or by clicking on the arrows to the right. So we have a low pass, a band pass, a high pass. Then we have a vowel sound, so a vowel filter, which uses a simple double peak system to mimic an unspecified vowel sound, and the format filter. So it's sort of like the vowel filter there. Okay, but more accurately models the frequencies of the human vocal tract as it forms different vowels. Then we have the cutoff, so that's the cutoff frequency. So this means different things to the different filter modes, and you should familiarize yourself with these different, these different filter types, okay? Because they can be extremely different. And then we have resonance, okay, for our low pass, high pass, and our band pass filter modes. So that just controls the resonant peaks, okay, of the cutoff. Again, you need to familiarize yourself with resonance and whatnot, okay? Modulation controls, so envelope sets the amount of modulation applied from the envelope to the cutoff filter. This gets a little into synthesis almost. If you know anything about synths, you should understand what this means. So our LFO sets the amount of modulation applied from the LFO to the filter cutoff. Okay, key sets the MIDI key tracking of the filter cutoff. So how much the cutoff frequency will follow the notes played, and velocity sets the amount of modulation applied from the MIDI keyboard velocity to the filter cutoff. So we already saw what velocity did there. Key is kind of similar, I guess. Kind of hard to explain, but try it out for yourself. You can we can see the differences here if we go to solo on this one here. Make sure that's, turn the key up there. And well, it's going to be a little hard to do here because you can see how that affects. Okay. We already know what velocity does, and then LFO. And we already saw our different types here. Low pass format, setting the cutoff. Put it up higher. Move this note. Move that note down. You can hear that format filter. The resonance is a high pass. All right. Turn that down before the resonance gets crazy. Okay, this is just a kind of quick explanation there of that. You really need to dig into envelope filters and so on and so forth. They get pretty in depth. Okay, so all of these controls are bipolar and thus have neutral or zero effect when they're in the middle position. Okay, you can apply modulation negatively when moved to the left and apply modulation positively when moved to the right. So our envelope controls, which we already looked at there, attack, decay, sustain, release. You should already know what that does because we covered it earlier in that other ADSR. It's going to be the same thing. Okay, you just have different envelopes for each different thing. So then the filter LFO. So the lowest area of the filter section is the filter LFO, which is of course a low frequency oscillator, and that's used to modulate the parameters. All right, the two controls to define the rate of the LFO is of course the rate, and then the sync. So when this button is active, the LFO rate will sync to the host tempo. When it's inactive, you can set it in hertz. All right, then you have your different LFO shapes that you can choose. Then we have copy, paste, link. All right, for all instruments, apart from the elements, the settings of the EQ and filter can be copied and pasted, similar to what we already saw with in our motion tab and our trigger effects tab there. So clicking the copy button will store it, of course, and the paste button, so on and so forth. Linking the EQs and filters. If the instrument offers a filter and EQ per key, sample, or channel, then you will find the chain buttons at the top, so you can link those. So when the link button is activated, the EQ filter settings of the current filter are copied to the other filters, and all changes to the filter parameters are applied to all filters at once. So that effectively turns it, into a master filter there. So for the 3-channel instruments, this slaves the other filters to the channel you have selected. The link button links channels And so links both the EQ and the filters. Then of course we have the master EQ. All right. So each instrument may have different channel sample EQ options available, but of course all instruments have a master EQ. You should know what a master EQ is. This is the one where you sort of, set up the full sound, right? If the instrument is a 3-channel instrument, the master EQ is accessed by clicking on the master EQ tab in the EQ filter page. If not, then the master EQ is located to the left side of the EQ filter page. And I'm not going to go through this because we already know what the EQ does. It's going to be exactly the same. We got 4 bands here in this case: level, frequency, and the Q. All right. We'll come back to this in a minute. So we can see in this case here, we have our master EQ here. That's of course going to affect everything. And this, this EQ has 4 bands in this case, where we have 3 over here. Turn it on or off with these buttons. Check out the EQ here, master EQ to the side there. And in this case, we have 3 different channels already set up. So our EQ filter, EQ filter, EQ filter, our master EQ, we can click right there. So now we have our master EQ drop down for our 3-channel instruments, okay? So while, of course, turn it on or off. So while these EQs are going to affect per channel, okay, this one here will affect everything. All right, and right up here are your link buttons here. For this, your copy and paste settings that you can do. So that's pretty similar to the other copy paste things that we saw. Not everything has copy paste there because there's not multiples there, but in this case we could turn this on, have a certain setting, and I could copy it and paste that in there. Or of course just link it. That way it's the same thing for our EQ. Set up a certain EQ, link it to all of the EQs per note in this case. So I believe that section is over. We are almost done here. The complex pad instruments use the 3-channel variations of the volume envelopes, the motion page, and the EQ filter page, which we've already seen. So on the main page, the central area has 4 tabs. The punish and twist tabs are already documented, which we already went over. The other 2 tabs are documented below. Here's our mixer button, and then the complex pads, of course, as we know, have 3 different sounds, and the mixer will let us blend those sounds together. So what do you say we just get rid of this? Bending the suspense, that sounds pretty good. So as you can see here, we have our mix tab there, pitch tab. We already saw the punish and the twist there. So here's our mix. We'll come back down here. So this mixer features a special volume mod feature, which is an LFO phase offset between the channels in such a way as to allow undulating between the sounds. Okay. Each of the channels has, some basic controls. Our pan, of course, our volume mod, so the volume mod amount, and that controls the amount of volume modulation. Our solo, of course, muting of all other channels, and mute, of course, mutes whatever channel we push mute on. Beside each channel are controls for the sample start offset of each channel. So start sets the sample start offset, random sets a sample start randomization amount, and below the mixer we have the controls for our volume mod rate for the volume mod LFO, on off button for the volume mod rate, toggles the modulation on or off. And then of course we have the pitch tab, but we'll check out this first. So down here we can turn that on or off, that modulation. All right, so let's hear this. Let me turn this down a bit. Turn that off. Turn it back on and we'll turn it up. You can see those volume mods happening there. Pretty cool. Then we have our start offset and then a random here. Then our mod amount here. Pull it way up here. You can see how that jump is much more, and if I turn that off. And turn the rate back on. You can jack it way up for all of them if you want. Or make it very low. And put this one about there. That's sound 1. Let me turn that off. Then channel 2. And 3. So that's the different sounds that we're messing with. You can see it's taking a long time for that sound to start. If we pull the start up here. Comes right on there. All right. Then you hear it all start to come in there. All right, let's load up a different one. What we got here? Turn that mod rate up. We have our pan here as well. Maybe we want to pan one sound left, one sound right, and then one about in the middle. Turn this down overall. Okay. Let's move on and go to pitch. So of course we have the pitch tab there. So the pitch tab is where you can set individual pitch bends amounts for each channel. All right, as well as the general tuning, positive and negative pitch bend amounts. We can invert it Okay, for for the controller. So moving pitch bend control down will transpose the channel up and vice versa. Instead of if you go up, it goes up. Well, now if you go up, then it will go down. You can invert that if you want, if that's how you like to control your wheel there. And of course, below the sliders are the tune knobs, which set the main tuning of the channel. So we can see that over here. This is turn on inverter knob, and we're setting the amount there. So if we invert those, I go up, it goes down. And that takes it up. All right. So that's pretty self-explanatory. And then you're just setting the range of that pitch bend here, the range that you want to cover with each each manipulation of your pitch bend. Okay. So you can tune those up just however you want. And then we have a master tune here. We can detune up or down. All kinds of stuff we can do in this instrument. It's taken quite a while to get through this, but we're almost done. On to the last section here. Section 5, menus and elements. So the menu and elements instruments, which share similar layouts, function differently. So menu, these are collections of different sounds, one per key. And then element, these are single samples stretched over the keyboard as a playable instrument. So the menus offer volume envelopes, EQs, filter per key. The elements, being a single sound, only have one of each, which we already saw that. So our sample controls, we'll have the sample control, which we'll go into next. So we can click sample on the main page there and look at that actual waveform. Then we can tune it, pan it, level it, the start and the random amount. Okay, which is sort of similar. And then we're on to 6, and that's the last part there. So let's go ahead and wrap this up here. So we saw on the mix, we saw the start and the random in this. So let's go to something else here, and in here we can click this sample button right there, and we can actually see that sample. And it's a different sample per key there, as you can see. Then of course we can tune that sample. So we'll go to C there, tune that up. We can pan it, the overall level, the start, which now you can see the start head there. So maybe we just wanted to go to here. Then we can put a random in there. Of course, go to a different key. Now it's going to be, different. So we can change this however we want. All right, and of course we have our ADSR that we can mess with as well. And we can come in here and actually move these note names around there and change this around however we want, without actually having to press the key. But of course, right now Link is on, so wouldn't make a difference anyway. All right, so I think that, wow, pretty much covers everything. That took a while, but it was well worth it, because now you should have mastered Vocalise by Heavyocity. Again, it's a really, really great instrument, and if you watch this whole video, you've read the manual now, and you should know everything that it is, everything that it's capable of. It's not just the sounds that it comes with, but with all of these options that we have in here, you can really create, a whole new world of sounds through all of our options, our ADSR, our punish, our twist, all of our effects here. Of course, don't forget, you can always change your impulse response there. All of the options are that we have here, our EQ and filter sections, our trigger effects, our motion, and of course on our three channel pads that we have on, say, like a complex or something. Throw that in here, where we're blending, a lot of different samples already. You can come in here and really start to mess up these sounds, just however you want. Filter on this channel. Put the release way up here. Get the attack there, up this, resonance up. All kinds of sounds that you can make here in Vocalise from Heavyocity. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, now that we know, what everything is, I'll go ahead and load up a few presets, or several presets, and we'll just play through some of the presets so you can sort of hear some of the sounds that come with Heavyocity Vocalise. Okay, so let's start out here, and let's just start to demo this now. Now that we know what everything is, right? Let's come in here and let's just grab something here. Alone in the Dark. Load this one up. Let's hear some of this. Punish that if we want. We come in here to our sample, and I know it's on random. Let's just pull that back down. Let's pan this sample. Turn on the motion effects. Here's our trigger effects. Let's go into trigger effects here. And let's just turn them on. Turn those on there. Very cool sound there. Let's grab another one there. Hope Eternal. That's a great pad right there, man. Just have that, underneath something there. You have some drums on top of that. Mess with our attack. Make that much slower. And we'll pull the release way out there. Now it really fades in there. Turn this down a bit. And you can see how long that's taking to release. Let's twist this up. Of course, turn it on. Turn the release down a bit. And there you go. I mean, you've already got sort of at least a bed there for a movie soundtrack there. You know, this is, it's more than just vocal sounds, although, of course, you know, the reason I got it, of course, was for the vocal sounds, but, you know, it's a very interesting instrument. Let's go to some ambiances here. Nice low sound there. Let's punch it a little bit. Maybe a bit too much. We can put a chorus on that, which would sound pretty cool. And let's put some glide in there. A little unison. Pull the attack down. And maybe just so it peaks and then drops down. So right there, with just a few tweaks, we completely changed the sound. Maybe we want to take this off of random. Start, tune it up a little bit. Now it's going to take a while to come in. Nice, slow, evolving sound. I'll just keep holding this down. It evolves for a long time there, as you can see. Very cool. You can even twist this one up too. I think some twist would be cool with this. Pull the rate. There we go. That's just an epic sound right there, man. Turn this down a bit. Change our impulse there. Pretty cool. Let's grab another one from this Elements Ambient. That is pretty cool right there. Trigger effects, lo-fi in there. Mess this up here. That's pretty cool. Let's go on and try some more. Let's go to a different category. Here's the Elements Short. Load that up. Turn it down a bit. We'll move our attack up a bit. A little more. Check the sample here. It's a little larger. The decay up, sustain up a bit. Twist this. Pull the glide up on this. Some cool effects out of this. let's move on to something else. Let's go to something else here. How about performance pads? These are really nice. Get to some of the, you know, the vocal sounds here, because these are, you know, quite amazing actually. Soloing each band here. Grab another one here. Do something from down here. Modulate that. Twist this a little more. Tone up and the rate up. And we'll glide it in some unison in there. We can do some filter on that to advance there. So again, we completely changed that sound there. We did some of those already. Let's go to phrases menu. These are probably my favorite. Although the pad sounds are pretty cool too. These are just unbeatable here. I mean, throw some of those pad sounds underneath, you know, then have this on top. You see the sample there. Change this to a chapel. Not so much pre-delay. A little more in the mix. A little bit of a chorus on this. No distortion. Twist it a bit. A little more punish. Yeah, try that. Throw some unison there. That's really cool right there. Pull that unison back out. Don't twist it, don't punish it so much. I'm not going to twist it so much here either. Here's our samples. absolutely love that sample there. They're just some of the best vocal sounds in an instrument. You know, and you know, as we heard, it wasn't just, you know, it's not just vocal sounds that we have here. It's, you know, pad sounds, creative sounds that you can, you know, manipulate and mangle all you want. Turn it down just a bit. Of course, we can transpose here if we want. Put that back down. Don't forget your EQ and filter section that you can mess with here. Change this around. Pretty cool. Of course, our motion. Put that in the chain. Very cool. Like I said, man, so much that we can do in here. Motion lock. Do we have another snapshot? We could choose another snapshot there. Let's get rid of this one here. And let's try some of these out here. Very nice. Very cool. Very cool, man. Let's go to something else here. So sustained vowels. All the O's, oohs, ahs, e's, ums, you know, that you could probably want. Don't forget your ADSR, and here we have it on link, but we have 3 different channels that we could, you know, manipulate each of those. the motion tab here. Randomize, 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 randomize that. So there you've created a completely different sound, all within this one library. Some moving vowels. We'll wrap this up here in just a minute. Glide up there. A bit of unison in that. So much you can do with this this instrument. Very cool. Let's go ahead and close that one down. And I think we've sampled a little bit from each of these. Go to the C minor phrases. I just like these vocal phrases here. Turn it down a bit. Another great sample there, man. I say we end on that one because that one is that's just perfect. All right, but we have, you have so much that you can do in here. Of course, you have all of your, all of your pads, all of your voices, your elements there, all kinds of stuff that you can do with this instrument, man. It's huge. Load both of those up there. Put that on Omni. So those two don't go together. That's not too bad there. All right, very cool. So that is Vocalise from Heavyocity. All right, so if you have watched this entire video, you are now ready to go out there and use Vocalise to its fullest. We went through every single option, every single effect, all of our effects here, our EQ filter, our trigger effects, our motion effects. Be sure to make use of all of those things there, our sample, our punish, our twist, of course, our different interfaces with our, three different sounds into one. So many different options we have here, our ADSR, our different channels, our links, all kinds of stuff that we can do here in Heavyocity's Vocalise. So you can always go check that out at heavyocity.com. Of course, this runs in Kontakt, so you can head over to nativeinstruments.com if you want to learn more about Kontakt. This was Heavyocity Vocalise in depth.